class was the last ACT police class. So in those olden times, the numbers were issued to the recruits in the order they came in the class. So whoever passed the exam the best got the next number in the series, and the person who passed the exam the worst got the last number. A bit of a motorcycle nut. So I went on police bikes and I stayed in traffic for 12 years. So I liked it a lot. Finally I actually went to judicial operations. In those days it was called legal branch. I did 2 years there, and then I went back to general duties for 6 years. After that I decided I'd give crime a go, and I went to the ACT crime here at Winchester for nearly 9 years, and now I'm at the college where I've been for 4 months. When I first joined, there was no fax machines, there was no mobile phones. The radio network was very not reliable. There's areas in Canberra the radio didn't work. The police cars had no air conditioning. They had no commercial radio, so you couldn't listen to 2CA, or there was no FM radio, so there was no 104.7. Everything was done with typewriters and carbon paper. And then we sort of added tickets. We didn't have traffic infringement notices in the ACT in the 70s. I can't remember when they started. I think it was in the 90s. We used to summons everybody. We had to fill out this big book called a field breach book. You'd fill it in, rip it out, throw it in, the traffic offender would get a summons. I think the biggest changeover was in 1989 when we got our first computer system called a COP system, which we thought was wonderful in those days. But when you look back from Promise, it was quite ancient. From my time when I adhered the fraud team, the internet has changed everything. Money can be transferred 24 hours a day. It can go anywhere in the world in a blink of an eye. It's caused huge problems with investigations because it can bounce from one jurisdiction to another. Tracking it can become difficult as well. There was only one version of the Motor Traffic Act. There was one Crimes Act. There was the Commonwealth Crimes Act, which we have criminal codes now. So since then we've had forensic procedures, Special Protection Orders Act. All these new legislation has come in for handling specific things. We never had that. Everything was covered in the old Crimes Act 1900. When the guys come in off the road now, they have their promise job, and then they go in and they fill out their result texts and tickle the boxes. Back in those days, we'd finish a job, come back to the station, and then we used to have a lever arch folder. And the guy in the front office used to get rung up from the comms to say, and then he'd fill out this sheet manually, and then he'd punch some holes in it, stick it in the folder, lever arch folder, and then we would come in off the road and we'd search through the sheets for that day, and we'd stick them in the typewriter and tell the story, similar to what they do in the result text. And then that would go into the sergeant's office at the end of the shift, and then he would sign it off, and then you would get it back if it wasn't done properly. Parliament House, I was actually working in the legal team at that time, and we were called out to go there. So we got there before the demonstrators got there. My supervisor and another guy I used to work with, so we were actually on the inside of the doors, the big copper doors, and I was probably on the left side about halfway in the crush. And as the demonstrators were pushing against the doors, which are massive doors, the whole things were rocking like this. And they were moving in their frames, and I'm thinking, which way are they going to go, you know? But they held up. We've always enjoyed community policing, enjoyed contact with people. We seem to be able to help people out most of the time. You win the odd court case. And you're learning all the time. It's not a question of mastering it, it's a question of doing it better. So I don't pretend to know everything. So I've always loved it, so I'm still here.